I refute that the same way Americans refuted Khrushchev when he said, "We will bury you." Khrushchev was wrong, and Hu Jintao is wrong. And finally, we come to the question of our cherished institution. Well, let us just be clear. As clear as the Constitution is, the Constitution protects us from having a religion established in this country. But nowhere in the Constitution does it dictate that all religion must be eradicated from the public square. In terms of our families, we must continue to defend and advance parental rights against incursions by governmental bodies here at home, bureaucracy here at home, judges here at home, or even the United Nations. The ability to impart your moral teachings and principles to your children is inviolable, it is sacred, and it must never be impaired. In terms of our communities, we know the bureaucracy is the enemy of both community and creativity. As the welfare state is reformed, as it implodes, what we need to do is seize the opportunity to practice what is called the principle of subsidiarity, which means this: that the smallest unit of government that can handle something should be allowed to, starting with the individual, moving to the family, moving to the community. And this is not a stroke of genius on my part. This is called federalism. It is called the first guard against big government in Washington, is making sure that people can self-govern, the communities and families can band together for the common good and execute solutions to problems in their midst without Big Brother trying to do a one-size-fits-all. And finally, with country, we should never be ashamed. My father never was. My mother never was. My children will never be ashamed or embarrassed to express the fact that the United States is an exceptional nation and a blessed one. Now, we may differ on some of the ways to accomplish and transcend these four great challenges, but reasonable minds can differ. That's why I was also drawn to the Republican Party, because of the debates we could have, the things that I could learn from engaging with my fellow Republicans, and that there was no standard orthodoxy that would tell you what to think or not to think, because we do not purge. We are a transformational movement. We add, we persuade, and we move forward. As we move forward, people will ask, what can we do? Well, I was asked that question back in 1986 by my friend Dave Oshani, who was the best man at my wedding. I let him be best man despite the fact that he was the guy who convinced me to become a Republican precinct delegate. And as you all know, back in 1986, things were a little different back then. We were all younger. The rest of you stayed good looking. But the first job I was given was to take index cards in a shoebox and compare them to a thing called Bressers, which was street addresses and phone numbers and names, so that I could bring our elaborate filing system up to speed as we tried to keep membership recruitment coming in and tried to get new voters to join the Republican Party. Well, I learned a great lesson a couple years ago, and I was sharing that experience with my son, George. And I said, well, George, we had to get these cards, we had to look the numbers up, we then had to make the phone calls, and every now and then you these envelopes to get the message out, and sometimes you'd have to go drop them off. And he said, hey, Dad, why didn't you just hit reply all on your email? Why didn't you just hit send? Why did you have to do all that? And I said, well, son, we were masochists. We didn't. But the reality is you live in a great communications revolution, as I've said, and that applies to politics. That applies to government. First of all, I think it's been a tremendous development, because think of the transparency that it's brought to light. And I'm not talking about twit pics, I'm talking about being able to see how your government operates, being able to see members from across the country on TV, on YouTube, putting messages forward. You can do the same thing. You have email lists. Some of you have Facebook. Some of you engage in Twitter. You have the ability to get your message out. You have the ability to help influence the shape and course of your community and country to an extent that was unknown back in 1986. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself a question. Could you imagine the Gipper with Twitter? We may not all be the Gipper, but we can all use Twitter. We can all use the new technologies to advance our vision of the United States as a free people in the 21st century. And so, I'll conclude by putting forward what I believe to be the choices that we face. And they're very simple choices. And they're between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I will start with the Democratic Party on the left. You can have liberty in the Republican Party, or you can have servility. You can have prosperity, or you can have poverty. You can have solvency, you can have bankruptcy. You can have security, you can have duty, you can have indulgence. You can have exceptionalism, or you can have declinism. We have made this choice long ago, as Republicans, as Americans. And that is why, let there be no doubt, that the best days of this country are ahead because of you, the majestic American people. And we will rebuild an America that works, a virtuous, prosperous, secure, and creative nation, so that we can still inspire the rest of the world to see what our free people can achieve. Why? Because we're Americans. It's what we do. Thank you very much for having me, and God bless you for what you do. God bless the United States of America.